Hi guys, today we are going to talk about your quail hutches. I'm Chris from the Dinosaur Omelette. We're a small hatchery here in southern Lancaster County, and we really specialize in raising the jumbo Coturnix quail. What a fabulous egg and meat producing little critter you can have at your farm, homestead, or just your residence. The jumbo quail have gained huge popularity over the last 3 years. You're probably seeing a bunch of videos online on YouTube or friends on the Facebook or other social media talking about their egg and meat production with these little guys. And what we want to talk about today is your hutch setup. This is going to be a critical part of your program. Now, before I walk you guys through our hutch and discuss that, like and subscribe if you don't mind, and definitely leave comments and questions down below. We love to educate people, and we really enjoy the feedback back and forth from you guys in the community. So if you have any questions about your own setups, drop them down in the bottom. We always get back to them. We're a small channel, so we do have the time to reach out to you guys and answer your questions. This is a jumbo quail, a Coturnix japonica. People will call them wild because of their coloration pattern, their color pattern, or just a pharaoh. But the Coturnix bird, the jumbo quail, the jumbo Coturnix, will grow about, ours anyway, as we breed them, are 12 to 15 ounces. To qualify as a jumbo, they say about 10 ounces. But this is about how big they are. This girl is, I'd say, I think she's 8 or 9 weeks old now, maybe actually a little closer to 10. So not very big, but very, very proficient egg layers. How many eggs do you lay? 300 a year, sir. That's right, 300 eggs a year, 300 little quail eggs a year, and they're really not so little. 300 of these a year. So 3 of these is equivalent to about 1 large chicken egg. So 300 of these a year is about 100 chicken eggs from these little guys, which are cage and hutch kept. They're housed in these little hutches. And if you guys are new to quail, one of the reasons these pharaoh quail are so popular is that they're, not only are they the largest domesticated breeds, but they're feather sexable. So you can tell this is a female by her speckle pattern on her chest. Can you look up for me? There we go. See the nice speckle pattern? So she's a girl. And the males have a orangish, reddish breast without the speckles. So they're very easy to feather sex at 3 weeks of age after they hatch. Now, I don't want to turn this into an all about quail video, guys. There's a lot of information actually down in the description of this video. We put a lot of our PDF literature that we wrote from scratch. Quail raising checklist. 25 easy how-to questions, because these are the most common questions about these quail. So yeah, click on that link if you're new. This will really get you up to speed on most everything about raising jumbo quail for food production. What we stress every time we talk in these videos is the importance of predator proofing, making sure your hutch is not going to be compromised by predators. So what are we talking about? Rats, minks, skunks, possums, all those little critters out there with the paws. Raccoons. Now, if you don't have a taxidermized rat and weasel laying them around the house, I wouldn't worry, because we do. Say hi, guys. So these little dudes will slip inside of your hutch in a hole about the size of a quarter, so you want to keep that thing tightly sealed. Isn't that right, fellas? You see, they don't care. They'll go in at night and eat your stuff if it's not predator-proof. So how do we predator-proof? I'm going to walk you through that right now. So I'm going to walk you through the needs to make sure your hutch is predator-proofed. And we'll go over the other components that are pretty important to have this thing set up for quail. All right, I like to use this model for our education because I can transport it and show people. And it essentially is a replica of the hutches that we use. What I'm talking about with the predator proofing is the use of hardware cloth, this metal fabric that's wrapped around the top, the sides, and the bottom where these eggs are rolling out. So this hardware cloth, half-inch hardware cloth, is going to prevent the small rodents from getting in here, being able to grip onto the quail through these cages. Okay, half-inch hardware cloth looks like this. So this is half-inch hardware cloth, 1/2 inch square steel meshing. Now, there are 2 different kinds of meshings you could use. This is uncoated steel wire, uncoated half-inch hardware cloth. So why is that important? There is a vinyl coated hardware cloth. You'll see it in the hardware store. It usually has like a green color to it. You can tell it's been sprayed. That's important because with the quail walking on this surface, especially with this untreated steel, there are burrs sometimes where the weld joints are. And those little tiny burrs can cut the quail's foot. And then that may introduce an infection, which people commonly refer to as bumblefoot. If you're new to quail, you'll probably hear the word bumblefoot quite frequently. So to avoid that, the floor of your hutch, okay, 1/2-inch hardware cloth, can either be standard steel, which you can sand down, sand it, gently sand it to get these burrs off if they're there, or the coated vinyl hardware cloth, which we would recommend. It's easier, it's more durable, it lasts longer, and it obviously is not going to have those spiky little burrs. As you can tell, the floor has that hardware cloth for the birds to walk on, and also so the droppings will go through. If you're using something smaller than 1/2-inch hardware cloth, it'll clog up your flooring and it'll be a disgusting mess really quick. So you want to have the appropriate size. If it's larger than a 1/2-inch hardware cloth, you may have rabbit wire and a used rabbit hutch that you want to use. That's going to be too big for the quail. They can get their feet caught, and more importantly, predators have a much easier time reaching through that larger size meshing. So as your quails soil the pan, you're going to put a pan underneath of here. And what I have is a rack that's installed underneath of your hutch where the pan can slide on and off. So here's my little homemade cardboard pan. So you can pull that out and clean it off however you're doing your manure management. But keep in mind, you see the gap here? You want to have as small a gap as possible between the floor and the droppings pan. That's because that weasel guy can get inside of there and the rat can squeeze in there if it's too big. So you want to have a close gap, but not so close where it gets clogged when they're going to the bathroom. The last thing about flooring you may want to keep in mind is you probably want to have an egg rollout where the quails lay their eggs inside of the hutch and they're going to roll due to the slope to the front outside, where this is a catch where you can just come along and pick your eggs up and take them as you wish. So you have that gentle slope. We do about 1 inch per foot of drop. And conveniently enough, hardware cloth usually comes in standard sizes of about 2 feet wide. So our hutches are between 2 feet and 3 feet wide to satisfy that hardware cloth dimension. What size hutch do you want to build? Well, you know, that's pretty easy to figure out if you know how many quail you want. So if you're starting from scratch and you're building your own hutch, you want to determine how many quail you're going to be housing, and that's going to really determine the size of hutch you want. You're not going to build a huge hutch for a handful of animals, and you're not going to build a tiny hutch for a lot of animals. All right, so what we recommend and what we run our quail out as a maximum for their housing is by the square foot of the floor. We max out at 3 quail per square foot. Okay, so the simple mathematics, we have a hutch that's 2 feet by 3. Okay, 3 feet long, 2 feet deep. That's 6 square feet. Okay, so the maximum of 6 square feet times 3 quail would house 18 quail, which if they're all hens, it's 18 or so eggs a day. Now I do have another video on this channel where I walk through my outdoor hutches, and we actually have a tiered hutch system, so it'll be a duplicate. 1 of these, 2 of these, 3 of these, so it's a stacked system with obviously room to pull the trays out and work with the hutch. But yeah, we do a vertical stacking system, so that's going to save up on your footprint. Okay, this is why these birds are really cool. You can produce a ton of food in a very small footprint. You don't need a gigantic yard, especially when you're stacking these hutches. Quail run hot and they love to breathe. They respirate quite a bit. So ventilation, I mentioned earlier, ventilation is very important for your covey of quail. Quail do great in any kind of a climate, but in that summer heat, you want to make sure they're getting plenty of air and ventilation blowing through this hutch of theirs so they're not going to overheat. They respirate quite a bit, and you will have condensation just from their breath from being huddled in there together. And just like any other bird, okay, they're susceptible to respiratory illness, so you do not want to have a hutch that's enclosed, getting hot, and retaining moisture, where that would be the perfect breeding ground for bacteria for these little guys to get sick. So plenty of ventilation. This hutch is, in the way I built them, ventilated fully on top, the bottom on the floor, at least on this side, and the sides of the hutch are all hardware cloth. I do add for my hutches a sandbox side, so the guys, which will be a hard floor. It's mostly enclosed except for the ceiling, but it's a little hideout for the quail to come in and have a sand bath and have a refuge. And if this is an outdoor hutch, you're obviously going to want to have a roof to protect them from the elements, not just the rain, but the sun and the heat. Another important aspect of your hutch you guys are going to want to consider is your feeding and watering system. On our hutches, we use J feeders. You may have one or several set up, and the J feeder is kind of just like what it sounds. It's kind of shaped like a letter J, and you have access on the outside of the hutch to feed it up. It's going to be attached, obviously, so nobody can pull it out, but you're filling that from the outside. The real issue with any feeding system is managing the waste. Managing food spillage just isn't about saving money, and you obviously do not want to be paying for food that's going to the ground. But if you have a lot of food that's getting to the ground, check it, this guy shows up. The little predators, the pests, they sniff the delicious free meal and they come running around, especially in the winter time when food is scarce. You don't want to have too much feed waste because the predators do come around looking for the free meal, and bing, 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 there's a huge bonus. A delicious quail to go along with the feed. All I have to do is walk up the side of the hutch, and if it's not predator proofed, he will get in. So be aware of that. Quail will not overeat, but they do need access to food all day long. Unlike a chicken will eat until they practically explode, and they'll just keep eating and eating. These guys eat until they're satiated, and they'll go scoot along and hang out with their quail buddies. But you do want to keep food in there available at all times, because when it does go empty and they're kind of hungry, you know, they get a little agitated. They may get aggressive towards the other quail in the hutch. So just make sure to have food available at all times, and obviously figure out what works best for you to avoid spillage. There's different systems. Again, I have a video on this YouTube channel where I walk through my outdoor hutches, and I show you the hardware cloth netting I put over top of the feeders to diminish the waste. And that seems to be working pretty successfully. But there are other options, and that's for you guys to figure out what you want to do for your own hutch system. And like any other critter, the quail are going to need to drink, and in the summer they do drink quite a bit. The kind of water system we use is a 5-gallon gravity system, where we have a bucket or a reservoir sitting outside of our hutch, above the level of the hutch. We have a tube running down that fills up their watering reservoir inside of their cage. There are other options. I mean, if you're not raising a lot of quail, you can use something like a bottle waterer, but keep in mind it's going to get dirty. Their mouths are going to be eating in the food. They're going to be going back and forth from the food to the water, from the water to the food, and it gets dirty pretty quickly. So you're going to have to be taking it out and clean it, because you do want to keep their water clean. With the larger reservoir systems like the bucket system, you're feeding the quail off of little drip nipples where they can just be pecking at it, and they're not going to be getting dirty water. They're going to be getting that clean water directly from the reservoir, and they're not going to contaminate it or get any debris into it. The only thing to keep in mind with that, though, is algae buildup in the summer. You're going to have sunlight that's going to start developing some algae and keep your reservoir clean. You're going to notice it may be browning out, getting a little murky looking. And if that happens, you know, take it apart, take it down, and clean it out. And I do that maybe 2, 3, a few times in the summer, depending on how much shade is, or where the water is located and how much shade is there. All right, guys, I wanted to keep this one brief because nobody likes sitting through half-hour-long videos about quail hutches. I wanted to give you the basic important aspects of your hutch: the ventilation, the predator proofing, the access to cleaning it out, being able to clean off the manure tray, and the egg rollout, and that's about it. You know, inside, again, our description down in this video, I'll put links to the PDF for this quail raising checklist. Man, I wrote this for just anybody who has no idea what they're doing, and it includes information on how to set up your hutch properly. So that's not going to be an intimidating issue. You guys shouldn't be intimidated by this stuff. It's pretty simple and it's very rewarding. So if you're just getting started, that's awesome. Dinosaur Omelette, look us up on the Facebook and like and subscribe here, because like I said earlier, one of our huge goals is education, all right? Giving out information so you guys can be self-sufficient and produce your own food and feel a sense of accomplishment. And that's really important to us. And this community of the self-sufficient people, they're important to us. And that's why we go out of our way to do this for you guys, for anyone, and our customers here in southern Lancaster County. So I hope that helped. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments. Give us the little thumb thingy. Subscribe, that helps us out. If you have a request, stick it in there and we'll probably address it. Thanks.